Every industry has its Hall of Fame, and private label is no exception. This week, our industry inducted 4 new members, bringing the total of those honored to 25. The new members of the Private Label Industry Hall of Fame are John Mackey of Whole Food Markets, Bill Moran of Sav-A-Lot, the late Herb Pease Sr. of MMI, and Mike Jandanoa of Perigo. They join an impressive honor roll of industry pioneers and leaders, but also everyday retailers and manufacturers who do the drudge work of buying and selling. Pioneers like Etienne Thiel from France, who created generics back in the 1970s. The Albrecht brothers, Theo and Carl, who developed the Aldi chain, which is devoted almost entirely to their own brands. Dave Nickel, who masterminded the concept of upscale corporate brands. There are so many important contributors in the Private Label Industry Hall of Fame. You can see all of them by clicking on Private Label Hall of Fame on PLMA.com. Of course, no one stands out more than E.W. Williams, or Ed Williams as we called him. Ed had a remarkable idea back in the 1970s. A magazine devoted entirely to private label and a trade association that could run a trade show devoted to the same thing. True, there were others who came to the same realization and urged the industry to unite, but somehow Ed vocalized it better and deserves most of the credit. Not surprisingly, he was one of the first to be honored with membership in the Industry Hall of Fame. I asked Andy Williams, Ed's son, and now president of Private Label Magazine, what he thinks his father foresaw when he proposed a magazine dedicated to private label and an active industry association for private label manufacturers.
My father had been in publishing since the 1930s and started a magazine for the frozen food industry in 1939, rather 38. And was a forerunner of that industry. And all through the years, he was aware of private label and also aware of the fact that most magazines didn't give a lot of editorial space to private label because they depended on the brands for their advertising, and the brands didn't want to see private label get much play. So he had this idea for a number of years that it was an industry that really deserved its own magazine that was only talking about private label. And once again, as he was with the frozen food magazine, he was far ahead of his time when he developed Private Label magazine as well.
Andy, almost 40 years have passed since the launch of Private Label magazine and the founding of PLMA. There's no question that the industry has changed a huge amount. Do you think your father would be surprised by the store brands industry in 2011?
I think he'd be pretty surprised with it, although he watched the development from back in the 50s up until the 90s and was quite impressed with the changes then. But yeah, I think he'd be quite surprised at what's going on now. Certainly the industry is light years ahead of where it was when he started the magazine in 1979 in terms of product and marketing. It's just a lot more sophisticated.
Private label really is an unusual industry. You look around and you see many publications that were the Bibles of their industries scaling back or ceasing printing. Yet our industry seems full of energy with 3 print publications and 2 online websites covering the field. What's the reason for this dynamism, this entrepreneurial drive?
That's a good question. Unlike a lot of industries that are suffering right now, of course, private label tends to thrive in a recession. So we've seen no slowdown in the magazine. In fact, it's been growing the last couple of years and is continuing to see some strong growth this year. I think there's a dynamism in the industry. Manufacturers are doing well, the stores are doing well with their store brands.
Let's look into the crystal ball. What do you think lies ahead for store brands and the private label industry?
Well, you know, I hate to sound like a cheerleader for the industry, but I really see it continuing to grow.
The Private Label Industry Hall of Fame was established to bring recognition to those who have made and are making store brands into the historic success that has become. We will never be able to honor all of the men and women who have contributed to that success. Hopefully, by recognizing some, we are saying thanks to all of them. This is Kurt Goldschmidt for PLMALive.